right off the bat, I would have gone out and looked for more mentorships immediately. Everybody, when they start in this business, unfortunately, they think they could do it themselves, and they think that, hey, if I can keep 100% of the profit, that's the best way to go. It's not.
Real Estate Investing Profits presents Profit Masters with your host, world-renowned real estate coach and investor, Corey Boatwright. Now, strap in and get ready to learn elite wealth-building investment strategies taught by 6- and 7-figure house flipping masters as they reveal their best real estate investing profit secrets to you right now.
What is going on, my potty people? This is Corey Boatwright. I am your host of Real Estate Investing Profit Masters podcast series and the founder of Real Estate Investing Profits. How are you? I hope you're having a phenomenal, fun, productive, just incredible day. And I am excited about this interview with Fernando Angelucci. And he is out of Chicago right now. He has done some incredible things. He's a young, incredible entrepreneur, real estate investor that you are going to take a lot of notes on this interview. We went over self-storage, some of the benefits behind self-storage. We asked some really great questions together on multifamily versus self-storage. Some of the experiences that he's had, some of his downfalls, some of the just horrible, devastating things he went through on a 13-month eviction versus some of the big highs he's had on closing 133 units and building another 80 to 100 units, $1 million self-storage deal, and everything in between. His favorite mobile apps, favorite business quote, books, everything. You're going to love this episode. I am excited for you to listen to it. If you haven't already downloaded your Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, which is the down and dirty Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, why not? Text the word profit, right, to 38470, profit to 38470. Automagically, it will be downloaded to your favorite mobile device, and you can get it there on a PDF. So that is something you want to make sure you do. Also, if you are interested in real estate investing coaching, particularly for wholesaling, we do about 100 deals in the greater OKC area. I am starting to work with some other partners outside of OKC in different areas. Basically, we're just duplicating some of our systems in different states. So I'd love to have a conversation with you if you're interested in working together. Make sure it's a good fit for you. Make sure it's a good fit for us. What you need to do is go to Corey's Coaching, CORYS coaching.com, Corey'sCoaching.com, and answer a few questions there. Watch a really short, I think it's less than 2-minute video on wholesaling, and then we can go from there. I am pumped about this interview. You are going to learn a ton. You're going to love it. And without any further ado, here is Mr. Fernando Angelucci. Fernando, are you there, my man?
I'm here. How you doing, Corey?
What's going on?
Just out here trying to stay warm. It's a little chilly in Chicago right now.
You know, in Oklahoma yesterday, it was 8 degrees.
Yeah.
8. It was in the single digits. But you guys had like one of like the coldest times ever, like in February, right?
Yeah, we had that polar vortex. It got down to negative 50 wind chill, and unfortunately that day I was walking properties and I had meetings scheduled I couldn't cancel. So it was rough.
That's brutal, man. That's brutal. So Fernando Angelucci, did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. All right. So, because I knew I was just going to botch that name up. Actually, you and I just met each other, and I'm excited about seeing you come to CG. Collective Genius, one of the awesome, mastermind groups in the country for real estate investors. And one of the things I'm pretty pumped about is your experience in self-storage. So I definitely want to get into that. And I'm also really curious on some of the questions that we're going to go over today on what some of your influences were investing and whatnot. But why don't we go ahead and kind of roll from there? Who are you, and really what would you say is one of your expertise in investing right now? Because I know you do things outside of self-storage too.
Yeah. So based out of Chicago, Illinois. Chicago.
Hey, have you had the side note? Have you had what's that pizza? Gino's Pizza?
Oh yeah. So I had all Gino's, these, Lou Malnati's.
Oh, it's so good.
Every one of them.
Yeah, so good. But it's like 10,000 calories a slice, something like that.
Yeah.
It takes 2 hours to prepare a pizza pie. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So based out of Chicago, started investing in the Midwest via wholesale. Quickly moved into buy and hold multifamily, and then we did flips. And then about 3 years ago, I started learning self-storage investing, specifically value add on existing facilities. As soon as I saw the light, at the end of the tunnel, I started selling all my rentals. I stopped doing flips. The wholesale company's still running. It's going about 50 deals strong per year right now. We're about to hire 3 new people, so we're looking to double that in the next 12 months. But the main driver, especially for the passive income, the buy and hold, if you will, and the fix and flip is the self-storage facilities.
Got it. So what made you want to really get involved in real estate investing in the first place?
Yeah, so I was 16 years old, and I was given Rich Dad, Poor Dad to read.
Nice.
I was kind of rebelling against my my reading teacher, and I said, I don't understand the point of reading fiction when there's so much we can learn out there. So typical like entrepreneur type A response. So I got that book. I went through it in like 3 days as a 16-year-old, and then from that point on, I knew I was going to be a business owner. I was still kind of leaning on, am I going to be a real estate investor? Told my parents, both my parents are foreign. So they came to the United States with the typical American dream, get good grades, get a good job, work there for 40 something years, retire with a pension. I told my dad,
where did they come from, Fernando?
Brazil. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
my dad is full-blooded Italian, but grew up in Brazil. And my mom's full-blooded Brazilian. So I'm a mix between the two. So I told him what I want to do. He said, hey, go to school, get a degree, just so if it doesn't work out, you can fall back. I ended up getting an ag bioengineering degree, working for a Fortune 50 company that moved me out to Iowa. When I got out there, that's when I started the wholesaling. All throughout college, when everybody else was going out and getting drunk, I was also getting drunk in my room, but I'd be drinking and reading like Robert Kiyosaki books. And I remember this one time, I'll never forget, my now business partner, Steven, walked in the room and I was reading a book called Tax-Free Wealth on a Friday night. And he's just like, what are you doing? And I was like, one day, Steven, one day you'll thank me for this. And now he's my business partner.
There you go.
Yeah.
You spoke it into existence. So who was one of your biggest influences for investing? You keep talking about Robert Kiyosaki. Is that one of your?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was definitely Robert Kiyosaki, just because I was reading a lot of books from him. Then as I started moving on, I started moving to the podcast and then actually getting mentorships. So one of my very first mentorships was actually another member in CG, was Mark Lane, because I was in the same market as him, Des Moines, Iowa. So he took me under his wing and he showed me how to wholesale my first deal. He did take 50% of the profit for that, which is at the time I was mad about, but today now I realize with a more abundance mentality,
rite of passage,
how great
rite of passage,
how well it was. Then, I went on to Indianapolis to learn the turnkey model from a large provider out there. He had something like 600 to 900 doors. I can't remember exactly how many at the time. Opened up the wholesaling market in Indianapolis, and then as I started getting into the larger style deals, specifically syndication. Gene Trowbridge, awesome guy, has a bunch of material out there that's really helpful. Yeah. And then just some of the larger guys, it's funny, a lot of the guys that I really looked up to in the past 5 years that have been doing this are in our CG group.
I know, it's great, right? It's awesome. So we keep talking about Collective Genius here, mastermind group that over almost 10 years now. It's getting really close to 10 years. My best friend, Jason Medley, started, and actually it's funny, in the very beginning, first event, I brought some people in to that event. It's just incredible to see how big that thing has grown. But yet it's also stayed small, which is a really big challenge whenever you're growing, because you just want to grow, for the sake of getting bigger. And there's a sense that's causing more impact and whatnot. But sometimes if you grow without intention and purpose, then, you actually are just kind of creating more noise instead of more impact. And that's actually a big differentiator for CG. I've been a part of I'm part of mastermind groups now, but I've been a part of a lot of them. And CG definitely is in a league of their own in terms of intention and culture and values. And I mean, those things are super important to Jason, and they're obviously super important to the members of the group. Can't say enough good things about it. Super pumped that you're a part of it. I've been there since day one. So it's been awesome to see it. Did you have back to your investing years and what you've been doing, did you have a point where you kind of had a breaking point where you said, enough's enough, I got to get involved with this real estate investing? I guess that would be pre 16 years old. Were you like, what were you doing before then? Or were you just like, I know I got to get involved with investing? Did you ever work like a real job, Fernando?
Yeah. So I think my first real job, I was 14 years old. I was working as a bank teller, and just the 9-to-5 life. As a 14-year-old, I was making $10 an hour, which is pretty good.
That's great,
but
man.
Still, just it was funny because when I get my paychecks, first I was like, wait a second, I was making $10 an hour, and here's my paycheck. Like, where did it all go? So that's the very first time I experienced like what taxes were, and how if you're
we
not
all have a silent partner. It's
okay. If you're not creating jobs or creating housing or energy, the government's going to actually they're going to penalize you for that via taxes. Whereas if you do what we do, then you're taxed accordingly. So that was the very first foray into like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But then I think the thing that really spurred me into action was right when I graduated college. So I was working for a Fortune 50 company, still doing the exchange, time for money thing. And I started wholesaling on the side. And the reason why is at the time, my day was pretty typical. How it started, I'd wake up around 4:30, 5 a.m. in Des Moines, Iowa, jump in the truck after a quick breakfast and shower. Then I'd drive all the way to the Mississippi River. So it was about 3 hours to hit my first client at 8 a.m.
Wow.
Then I would, zigzag up and down the eastern part of Iowa, hitting clients until about 8:30 p.m. I would stop in Cedar Rapids, spend the night, do the same thing the next morning, make it all the way back to hopefully Des Moines. So I was on the road, anywhere between 5 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. every day. And that people don't realize that driving and sitting down for that long, it really does take an effect on your health, not to mention the crap I was eating.
Oh, yeah.
And I just feel good about myself. And then once I started wholesaling, I quickly, within 6 months, replaced my income from that Fortune 50 company, only working nights and weekends. And I was like, if I can make this much money just on the side, like, why am I doing this 9 to 5? So I quit and never looked back. I actually burned some bridges. I called my boss. I said, hey, you got 2 weeks. And then 3 days later, I called him again. I said, actually, 2 weeks is too long. Meet me at the dealership. I'm dropping off the keys to the truck. If you're not there, I'm just going to give them to whoever's around. And that was my last day, July 24th, 2014, 4 p.m.
4 p.m. That's awesome, man. Dude, what a great story. So I think that takes some balls to be able to do that, because you're burning the ships, and you're like, I'm all in. So I want to talk about, obviously that probably created, you had the gumption to be able to do that, but also there's probably been some challenges along the way. Like, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you get through them?
So one of the biggest reasons I went into self-storage, this was another breaking point for me, was we had just concluded, it was on a multifamily property I had. We had just concluded a 13-month eviction, where this was a professional tenant. She knew all the tips and tricks. She got all the tenant rights groups involved. It was just such a nightmare. And that's when I decided, hey, I have to get out of this. Chicago is in Illinois, which is one of the most tenant-friendly states in the nation. And then Chicago itself is one of the most tenant-friendly cities in the nation. So doing rentals out here, you have to be the best of the best, or else these professional tenants will come around. And we had, processes in place. We were doing very well, But every once in a while you get somebody that they just know the system. They probably haven't paid rent. And we actually, unfortunately, we inherited her when we purchased a multifamily property. So we didn't even get to select her. And then we had to clean her out. It was a nightmare. The amount of cost that went into that, the amount of lost rents, the damages that were done to the facility when we bought it. We had to take a loss on that property. It was just it's a nightmare.
Jeez, man. Yeah. So that was like 13 months of eviction.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So in Chicago, there's a rule where if the temperature is below a certain threshold, they just stop all eviction proceedings right off the bat. So and as you guys know, in Chicago, it gets cold a lot of the time. So,
jeez, man.
Yeah.
And then the heat and the gas and all the other things that come along with that, right? I mean,
we had probably $50,000-$60,000 worth of damage on the property because she started like getting all the other tenants on her side in the building. Then they started to stop paying rent. It was a cascade effect. And at that point I said, you know what, we got to look for something different. We need to find something that's a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
That still produce the same, if not better level of returns. And
how many units did you have total on that?
The total was 29 units.
29 units. Okay.
Yeah. Now we're down to, I have a few more properties to sell. I think we're down to 16 units left.
Nice, man. Yeah. We're selling more of ours as well. Just looking more in that multifamily route for more what we call legacy wealth, right? Mm-hmm. Having one roof for 200 units versus 200 roofs. Anyway, yeah. Do you have a profit master investing strategy? One thing that we call on the show, and basically it's one of your strategies that just is crushing it right now. It's one of the things that kind of gives you that edge. If you're willing to share, what would you say is like one of the biggest and the greatest strategies that you are using right now that's really affected your bottom line?
So on the self-storage side of the business, what we've found is approaching these mom and pop owners and actually getting seller finance loans put together. So what we've found is in the mid to late 80s, when there was the largest boom in self-storage creation, just because materials were cheap, concrete, steel. And then what we also noticed going through the numbers that it's a heavily fragmented market. So when you look at the market itself, the top 18% of owners are only they're the 6 large REITs, the 6, publicly traded companies. Right. Then an additional 8% of facilities are owned by the next 100 operators. That means that 74% of all facilities in the United States are owned by mom and pop operators, which we classify as people that own 2 or less facilities and do not use any type of sophisticated management or marketing techniques. So these are guys and gals that are running this as a second source of income. Maybe they had some farmland, right, and they built this, and all of a sudden over the last 30-40 years the cities have grown to envelop that what once was farmland. So now they're in actually very good locations, usually along these highway routes that have high vehicle per day counts. So we've come to these guys and we've said, hey, we want to sell your facility. We know that you built this thing for $75,000. We're looking to buy it at $500,000 to $750,000. That's a lot of capital gains. That's a lot of depreciation recapture. Why don't we spread the capital gains across multiple years? Most of these guys are not very sophisticated, so they're saying, how is that even possible? What do I say? Well, why don't we do an installment sale? I'll actually give you a premium on the pricing from what I initially offered as a cash sale. And then why don't you hold the note for 5, 10, 15 years? And it's usually at phenomenal terms. I'm talking about 4% interest only for the first 4 or 5 years. And then we have the option to, refinance them out with no prepayment penalty.
At any point during the time, you can refinance
at any point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so there's no yield preservation clause because I'm the one that's setting up the loan. So I'm going to say, hey, is this something that would be doable for you? And they say, yeah, absolutely. Because they have never been a bank, right? They've never been a lender before. So to them, they don't have all these intricate, I need an interest reserve and I need you to, it's going to be tied to prime. It's floating rates. It's flat rate. I pay every month. That way you still get passive income. You also still get, usually we start doing principal payments immediately. if when we're turning around the value add, it starts producing a lot of cash.
Right.
So they get to extend that capital gains over a long period of time while also experiencing cash flow without any of the management.
I love that. And, just to expand on a little bit more, I think it's genius. And we do it as in terms of really targeting for multifamily apartments, trying to find these mom and pop operators essentially. And you'd be surprised on the sophistication level that your bias is on people that own 50 to 100 units, maybe even 130 or 40 units.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even know what a P&L sheet is. Some of them don't know what their total rents are. Some of them don't know what NOI is. Some of them don't know. And your bias is, everything because you have that many units. We have to take the bias out the window and really challenge the bias by asking the right questions. And I think those right questions really come down to, are they willing to owner finance? And here's the thing. If they're willing to owner finance, based on what you're saying, Fernando, this is such a huge piece of doing these type of deals, whether it's self-storage or apartments, because every dollar that they're willing to owner finance is less amount of money that you have to get from the bank, or less amount of money that you have to bring. So if that bank is willing to bring 75 cents on the dollar and you're supposed to bring the other 25, every single dollar amount that's supposed to be that you're supposed to bring, if you get owner financed, they don't have to bring it, because your LTV is getting basically a better advantage for the bank and for you, because you're owner financing it with the owner. You don't have to bring as much cash, so it leaves so many great ways to be able to work on both sides. The other great thing is because you're owner financing, you built it on your positioning. It sounds like with the mom and pop, that why did they get involved with this in the first place? Probably to make passive income. So they're still making passive income, but there's two little things that we always talk about. Whether if it's my price, then it's your terms. If it's your terms, then it's my price. Right. And meaning that if they want a higher price, right, then that's fine, but it's all going to start going towards principal, right? It's going to be based on your terms. If they want a lower price, then that would be okay, but it's based on, the opposite. So I think it's great what you're doing there, and it's genius. And has that been working for you? Up to this point? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, when you find these people, they built it initially thinking it as a second income, as a passive income. What I found is a lot of these mom and pop operators, they don't have a lot of management efficiencies in place. So it's not active, actually passive. It's actually active income.
It's active income to them, right?
So
which is another deal point, right? Yeah, that's another deal point.
Truly, you don't have to do anything. Here's my experience. You can see that I'm, here's my credit score. It's above 800. I'm a good bet. I have experience in the industry, and all you have to do is just walk to your mailbox once a month. There's going to be a check for you. You don't have to do anything. No more calls. No showing up to the facility at 10 p.m. to let somebody in that lost their key. None of that.
So think about what you just said there, and people listening here right now, he just positioned future tense. What do you want to have happen? Which is, who doesn't want to go to the mailbox and collect a check?
Paint the picture,
Just paint the picture. I love it, man. That's super exciting that you're pursuing this. I can see why this would be something really successful for you. What's a big lesson that you've learned up to this point that you could share that's really helped to get you where you are today, Fernando?
Yeah. So one of the biggest headaches we had a while back, and which caused us to switch over, is when we bought this one multifamily. We weren't thinking with the exit in mind. We saw great cap rate. We saw, a strong potential income. What we didn't realize is that, hey, this was in a small community. There's not a lot of investors around. So how am I going to exit? When I started dealing with the type of tenancy that came along with that area, in these areas, housing is a lot more affordable. I realized that the only tenants that I had to pull from the pool were, paying cash, don't know how they got it, I would get calls from tenants because they were in jail, so they were going to miss their next month's rent. So, I started off going into the C areas, making some good money in those areas with multifamily. But then over time, I realized that, again, this is not passive income. There's a lot of active management. There's a lot of headaches. I don't want that. So we moved into the self-storage space because of a few things. One of the main things is, instead of being guided by tenant law, we're guided by lien law or property law. So I could be next to City Hall in downtown Chicago with a facility. And if somebody doesn't pay on the third day, they get overlocked. So we put our second lock onto their unit. Then we put a notice in the legal newspaper. A week later, we put another notice in the legal newspaper. If they still don't come clean, then we call the auctioneer. The auctioneer brings their own buyers, and then it's basically an episode of Storage Wars. I usually get all of my money back that I lost in rent, plus a premium, because of the fees I can charge for late rent and auction fee and clean out fee. And then I have a waiting list. Next day, not even 28 days into the cycle, I already have another tenant moving in.
Do you get a chance to pick through the stuff that's in the units, or you don't even worry about it?
I don't even mess with that. I mean, usually it's not anything great. There have been a few times there was a facility near Waukegan, Illinois, up north from Chicago, where we were walking through looking at a potential purchase. And there was like an exact replica of the Knight Rider car in one of the units that had not paid rent for 3 years. So I was looking at Steven, I was like, if we buy this, that's my car. Like,
that's my car.
But for the most part, it's junk.
Yeah.
One man's junk, another man's treasure. So old couches and sofas and whatever.
Did you see like one of your units that was on storage ward and random doll that's in the corner that sold for $20K, and you're like, dang it.
I've had my fair share of shiny object syndrome. And now I'm getting very good at just focusing and saying no to a lot of things.
I think that's
saying yes to a short few that can fit on a postcard.
Good to great, man. Right? Jim Collins, saying yes to the great things, so you say no to the good. Those are great lessons, great things to share. If you had to start all over again, what is some advice for some new folks, and what would you change?
Right off the bat, I would have gone out and looked for more mentorships immediately. Everybody, when they start in this business, unfortunately, they think they could do it themselves, and they think that, hey, if I can keep 100% of the profit, that's the best way to go. It's not. What I found is it's better to have 20% of 10 deals as opposed to 100% of one. So that's one of the very first things I would have changed from the beginning, is start partnering immediately. That's how we got to the point where we are now. The amount of people that refer us to other investors is astronomical. I think just on our wholesale business alone, we have 6,100 buyers on our list for the Chicagoland area. And that was in a few short years. I think we came to Chicago with less than 500 buyers, and within 3 to 4 years we got up to 6,100. The second thing I would have done is taken some time to pick a strategy and only focus on that strategy until mastery. Not, jumping from, I'm doing wholesaling, and then, I see a multifamily property, I'll do that one. It's like, here's a flip, I'll do that as well. So I would have focused on wholesaling, done it for 3-4 years, really got it down. Once it got to the point where it is now, where it's almost completely automated, I don't spend much time in the wholesaling business personally, because I have a team and processes in place before moving on to the next thing.
Right.
The third thing, which I know I keep hammering it, is I wish I would have just skipped over flipping and rentals altogether, residential rentals altogether, and just went into self-storage. It's a fantastic industry. I can go over some of the reasons why I love it in a little bit. The questions are a little bit more geared towards it.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's one thing, like you said, shiny object syndrome, right? And you cannot be all things to all people. Right. At some point, you just got to dig in, So we were discussing about this. Still, self-storage is not something that I put my emphasis on. I know enough to probably make me dangerous about it, but you and I both know. In fact, one of your mentors, Scott, is in our group as well, Scott Myers. And so he's been wanting me to get involved with it for years. But multifamily right now is where we're putting our emphasis on it, and having great property management companies that really, really know how to manage the asset is extremely, extremely key. on that deal. But I think that the self-storage from the from the returns that come from it, from the additional tax benefits that come from it. I don't know on the banks. Are the banks more open to financing self-storage?
So let me go through my sheet of awesome self-storage facts here. So we just closed on a property.
Yeah.
About 6 months ago as a mom and pop owner, small facility, about $1 million, 133 units with space to build about another 80. We had two banks fighting over us, and we ended up walking out of the closing table with a 30-year fixed, fully amortized commercial loan that they held on their own books at 5.25% interest.
Jeez.
30-year fixed. And then they asked,
own books.
Yeah. And then they said, hey, you guys want interest only for the first year? And I said, absolutely. So that's on a.
You want more cash flow?
Yeah, that's on a small facility that these two banks are fighting over. And here's some of the reasons why. So I'll go down. So you were talking about high returns. So from 1994 to 2017, storage returned an annual average return of 17.43%. That's average, including 07 and 09. If you would have put in $100,000 in 1994, never reinvested the cash flow, anything, that would be worth around $4,026,000 today, or in 1990 or in 2017.
2000, yeah.
The second reason why banks love us is we're one of the safest loans. Between 2007 and 2009, self-storage only dropped negative 3.8% across all REITs that were surveyed, while the S&P dropped 22%. So banks love it. Mortgages dropped around 11, 12%. Of those defaults that did happen, the average loss to the bank was 1.52% per default.
Wow.
These are crazy numbers. So banks, they really do love self-storage, and that's why these banks that we're talking with, especially the local ones that have been doing it for a while, they have no problem holding it on their books as a portfolio loan because they know it'll pay out. And if they ever have to come take the property, they have a ton of equity built in.
It's a ton of equity, and it's pretty easy to take over, right?
Yeah, I mean the management's super easy. That one that I was telling about that we bought for about $1 million, it doesn't even have an office in place. Everything's done via a management system. You can send leases to sign via text message. They can buy their units. They can buy renter's insurance, everything from their phone. The owner, the previous owner, he ran it for 30 years. His idea was if you rented whatever your rate was today, that's your rate for life. So he never did any rent increases. We came in, all the rents across, it was 100% occupied. Rents across the board were 40% below market. He had no website. He had no internet presence.
Jeez.
All the tenants, the only way they can pay is by mailing in a check after he mailed out a physical invoice. So we immediately came in, and just by doing those three things, raising rents, bringing up a way for people to pay with anything, debit, credit, ACH, whatever, and then putting a management system in place. We're about to get this thing reappraised here in about a month to do a cash out refinance for more development on that property. We bought it for $1 million. It'll probably come out at about 1.6 on this appraisal. And that's
do they just look at the appraisal from the NOI basis, or how is that based on, or they look at other self-storages that are around?
No. So, because self-storage is such a niche niche real estate asset class, the real appraisal just comes off of net operating income based on other commercial properties, not even self-storage. So, we bought this at a 7.75% cap rate. We're going to have an internal of around like 13. And when they appraise us, they're probably going to put us at like a, 6, maybe they'll leave it at where we purchased at 7.75. But anyway, we'll be able to pull out all of our income, all of our invested capital, plus capital to develop the project.
Did you have self-financing on that one too, owner financing?
No. This one was a straight deal. Actually, the way we got the down payment was through a 1031. So one of our partners, they had a bunch of inherited farm ground, wasn't producing too much rental income. They did a 1031 from that farm ground into stable multifamily assets, and then we use that multifamily asset as the 20% down payment on the self-storage facility.
Nice. Okay. So like in kind, still covered just fine.
Yep.
Interesting on the 1031. Okay. So down and dirty, let's say you have 100 units self-storage. How many units was that last self-storage that you just did?
Yeah, that one was a small one. So that one was 133 units, and then
Okay.
we're going to add about another 80 to 100 units on that one.
Okay, so you're gonna add another 80 to 100. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 133 units, so just for the listeners right now, give us an idea of what those, obviously they can rent all over the place, but what are those things written for? Are they written for $50, $100 a month? What are they written for?
Yeah, it depends on the size. So, the smallest units we have are these 5x5s. They're rent for, 40, $45. But then we have these larger units as well that I call contractor units. You can have units that go all the way up to 10 to 20, 10 by 25 square footage.
Right.
And they can rent anywhere between, 150 to $250. So the mix is very interesting. So we did a deep dive into what our demand drivers was. And we found that 70% of our renters were what we consider residential renters. They just live in a house or an apartment, and they just need extra storage space. Now, this is one of those things where it's so important to really look at your numbers,
right? Because
you might find some revelations. We thought that the majority of our renters would have been people living in apartments because they didn't have a lot of room.
Right.
What we found out was the exact opposite. 27% as a U.S. average, this comes from the Self-Storage Almanac here as a source, 27% of these residential tenants live in apartment buildings.
27%. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 67% actually live in single family homes. And of those 67%, 65 had garages, 47% had attics, and 33% had basements.
Yeah. So 50%, they all need storage. They basically over 50%, they all need storage.
Yeah. And they all need it.
And they're all looking at a lot of these millennials now. I'm hearing some podcasts. I remember where it was. Basically, they're looking at these self storage almost like closets now.
Yes.
Because they're getting so much stuff. Amazon's delivering so much stuff, and they need to have more room for it. And so, on your renters, have you got a mix on that? Like, did you have a lot of millennials that that rent out versus people baby boomers and industrial? What is your mix there?
Yeah, it depends on the location of the facility. So this one that we're talking about is in a more rural area, not really rural. I would consider an exurb, so just outside the suburbs.
Okay.
We don't have many millennials there, but we do have some. And what we've noticed is exactly what you're saying. These millennials, they're using these, and I'm a millennial myself. They're using these facilities as an extra closet, and instead of going out and either renting or buying a larger home, they're opting to live closer to the city center where there's more activities and restaurants.
Right.
And then because they're not really spending a lot of time in their homes, they're out, they're at work. So it's really a shift from the life, this is a home life to more of a lifestyle based living.
Yes.
And they use these self-storage facilities as like you said, an extra closet. What we also noticed on the residential demand drivers is we have a lot of baby boomers that are now downsizing.
Sure.
They're also, on the older end of that, they're going into retirement facilities.
Sure.
There's not a lot of space. And these are people that have accumulated a lot of things over the lifetime, a lot of sentimental things that they can't part with. And they're using these facilities for these type of supplies and storage, what their needs are.
Couple of points. So $45, let's just say, let's bump it because some of them are 150 to 200. Let's just say on average, $75 a unit for 130 units. So it's not a whole lot of income that's coming in, right, in comparison to like let's have an apartments, which basically for, let's say, an apartment renting out for $700 a month, right, is basically about 10. So for every 10 self-storages, you get the same amount for one apartment in terms of the income that's coming in terms of the rent coming in, right? So these, but the return on self-storage, it seems like is much higher, but you're going to have to get a lot more self-storage units.
Well, so that's it's a little bit of a confusing stat there. So actually, when you look at it by the square foot, self-storage facilities are one of the highest per square foot rents that you can get, even higher than multifamily. So Yeah, maybe you might have a 1,000 square foot apartment building, but
Yeah.
in that 1,000 square feet, I can fit 5, 6, 7, 8 units, right?
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
pulling. So by the
Yeah, you
square
can.
foot,
But my point is you're going to have a lot more self-storage units. You're going to
correct,
have,
correct.
you have to have a quantity more, right?
Right, right. On a
So,
physical
yeah.
number basis of units, absolutely. But these units are a lot smaller. So we like to look at it based off of just gross square footage and net rentable square feet.
Yeah.
With how much. So when you look at that when you look at that ratio, you actually need less self-storage square footage than you do need multifamily apartments to get the same level of return.
Right. You just need more units. So you have to build
Right.
more units. Yeah. So
Right.
in this case, I mean, you can pull basically you almost double what you just got. 130, you add another 100, close to doubling what you got. Do some of these and gosh, we're gonna run out of time here. We got another probably 10 minutes, but I like this discussion. Maybe we come on for a part 2, but
Sure.
one question would be so on the value add options, so air conditioned units versus non-air conditioned units, heat controlled, what are some of the other kind of perks? How long on average is someone spending time, let's say over a period of a year that someone owns a storage, how much time are they actually at the self-storage facility? What kind of other expenses are involved on running these in terms of maintenance for the units? Obviously, some of them that aren't heat controlled, and do you have to have them heat controlled
Right.
or air conditioned? What about storms and things like that? When storms come and where they're, are they much more susceptible on insurance? Is the insurance higher or lower? I think we could dig into a lot more specifics about the self-storage business, but it sounds like you're on your game, and I'm excited to see you grow this thing, man.
Yeah, and so here I can give you some just deep dive numbers. So our residential tenants, on average, they spend about 13.4 months per lease term. Our commercial tenants, so these are guys that are like contractors or
that's how much time they spend on renting them, right? Like how long they stay, the attrition, or that how long they're staying. But
so the residential are 13 months.
How much time do they spend out of that 13 months actually at the facility?
Oh, very, very little, especially the residential tenants. So the residential tenants, they stay an average of 13 months. They're there usually once every 2-3 months to grab something, and then, the move in and move out. Our commercial tenants, their average lease term is 25.2 months. And they're there a lot more often because they're using it as kind of a hub between, maybe their warehouses as a midpoint, or they're using it for surplus materials when they buy at auction or larger.
Can you charge residential more, or can you charge commercial more versus residential?
Yeah, so there's a lot of upsells that are available. So for example, with commercial units, we can plug in electricity for them if they need that. We also have a lot of auxiliary income that we can offer to upsell. So for example, you have, moving supplies, tenant insurance. It's mandatory at our units. If they don't bring their own renter's insurance, we can provide it for them, and we can keep up to 90% of that as a commission.
Nice. That's nice.
We're talking, you can
so basically for that's like an extended warranty. For those that are listening, that's kind of like an extended warranty for a product that you basically never use. I mean, most of the time insurance is not used, right?
Right, exactly. And a lot of these insurance providers on these renter insurance policies, they'll allow us to keep anywhere between 50 to 90% of the monthly payment as just a commission to us. So another big vehicle parking, we can do cell tower leases, billboards, advertisements. I mean, there's so many auxiliary income streams that you really wouldn't have in, say, a residential rental scenario.
I would think also, man, having digital billboards, having digital billboards on your facility. The cool thing about that is you can now run multiple commercials on that billboard based on a basically fractionalized basis. There's a company called Blip that does this really, really well. And essentially you could do the same thing with self-storage. We were talking about this in apartments too. There's a lot of different things you could do. There's dog parks. Actually, I was just talking to a friend of mine that had 1,600 plus units. Dog park is one of the top 3 most compelling reasons why millennials choose a place to live if they have a dog park. Dog parks are actually not that expensive to create as well. They look kind of like a playground, and the insurance isn't what you think. It isn't like people are dogs are biting each other and all that. It's nothing like that. It's just there's a certain weight for the dog, and there's a psychology that goes into if you have a dog park. So anyway, there's a lot of different value adds that come to it. I'm looking forward to going over more and more of these things. I think we probably will have a part 2 on self-storage, because I can tell that you have a lot more to give, and I have a lot more questions to ask about it. But let's go into, what's your favorite motivational or business quote, Fernando?
Okay, this one I'm going to have to steal from Matt Terrio, who was a mentor of mine as well, also a member in CG in the past.
Good dude.
Go as far as you can see, and once you get there, you'll be able to see farther.
I love that.
Don't try to do things with the end in mind, because you're going to get overwhelmed. If you don't need to know what title company you're going to use at closing if you don't even have a deal yet. Focus on, how do I market? Once you figure out how to do the marketing, focus on how to talk to the seller. Once you figure out how to talk to the seller, focus on how to do underwriting. Don't worry about what's way in the future, because once you get to that point, you'll be able to use what you've learned getting there to tackle that issue.
Man, it's so powerful. And Matt's a genius in his own right. I mean, hello, Matt. You're listening to this. We know you will. He's built just an empire, and his systems and processes are, second to none on how he automates things. And this doesn't surprise me that quote comes from him. And it's so powerful. We often get overwhelmed with thinking about the elephant and that concept of just eating one bite at a time. Right. And eventually you eat the elephant, compared to just sitting there and saying, there's no way I could down this thing. You don't think about downing the whole elephant. You think about downing the leg first and then another leg. And then this is going to get weird, but I get what you're saying. And it's a very, very powerful quote. And thanks, Matt, for mentioning that. And Fernando, that's awesome. What was another book you think has really changed your life? I know you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but outside of that one.
Yeah. So can I give 2 instead of 1?
Absolutely.
I'm torn. 3. Okay. So the very first one, I think everyone needs to read this. It doesn't matter if you're a real estate investor, if you do multifamily, it doesn't matter. It's called Never Split the Difference.
Oh, it's awesome. Negotiation book. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, book. So on the face, it looks like a negotiation book, but what it truly is how to active listen, how to be an active listener. It's not only good for negotiation, it's great for personal relationships. It's great for relationships with your significant other, with your partners. It is it changed my life when I read it, because most negotiation books, they always say compromise, compromise, compromise. That's how you get a deal done. What Never Split the Difference says, because Chris Voss was the lead FBI hostage negotiator, when he compromised, that means he would get half of his hostage back, which is a loss. So the only way he would win is if he won completely. And it's a way to change the frame to what you want is actually what I want. Let's get there, but I'm not going to compromise what I need to get to that point.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love that.
So that's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, this book alone, when I implemented its processes, it probably increased my gross revenue by 4x. It's called Traction.
Yes.
I believe it's Gino Wickman, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So wonderful book. A lot of entrepreneurs, we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. We put together a process for how to do short sales. We put together a process for how to run a rental property. But what we don't have a process for is, how do we run our organization?
Right.
What are the processes for having meetings, for keeping people accountable, for scorecards?
Right.
These are the things that are super important. Before you should do everything else, you should figure out a way that you can systematize just the running of your company. And that is Traction. Changed my life. That's
a powerful, powerful book. The level 10 meetings, everything that comes into basically figuring out your big rocks. Traction's a book that's heavily mentioned and used. I've actually brought some people in from Traction organization. You can have some other people come in and work on your systems and processes. Man, it's a
EOS system.
Incredible book. EOS, yeah. So That's awesome. I love what you said about never split the difference. Active listening. Active listening is basically saying, what I hear you saying is X. Is that correct? So basically you're validating whenever someone is saying something, which is incredibly crucial, because often when we think we heard something, we didn't hear it the way that the person wanted us to hear it. That's a very important part.
What I've found is when people say they're listening, they're not really listening. What they're doing is they're already trying to formulate a response.
Yeah.
And that takes away from actually absorbing what the other person is trying to say. And if you listen carefully, you can always find ways to get what they're trying to get done and get a mutually beneficial, result, just by really breaking down what they're saying, using mirroring, using labeling, accusation audits. These are all great things to do when you're talking, not only when you're negotiating against somebody, or with somebody for a real estate deal, but even when when your kid is throwing a tantrum and you need to figure out what's going on, or when your significant other wants to talk to you about something that's stressing him or her out, right? These are huge skills to learn, and that will benefit you in every part of your life, not just your real estate investment career.
It's so important, man. So important. I love what you said about with your spouse as well. Very cool. Cool angle to use that book. Do you have any mobile apps that you use on like a daily basis? What's some of your favorites?
So the number one that I've been using quite often here is it's an app called Scannable. It's owned by the Evernote company.
Yeah, man.
It's an app that allows you to take a picture of a document. It'll automatically turn it into a PDF scan that you can email, text. And it's great for when you're trying to get contracts signed on the spot.
Yes.
Give them a purchase agreement, send them a copy, send a copy to the attorney, to the title agent, get everything rolling. It's super fast. I don't have to, carry around a giant scanner with me, which we used to do for our field acquisitions kit.
Yes.
It's an awesome app that we've been using quite a bit. And then the other one is just DocuSign. The DocuSign app has been awesome.
Love DocuSign, love Scan.
Yeah.
So, having a mobile app business from a long time ago, back in the day, I had to test all kinds of different apps. It's funny you mentioned Scannable. There's another app that's called CamScan. So if you haven't checked that out, if you have,
I got it.
It does batch scanning, right? So that's pretty cool. So I love that app. So every time when we get a contract right in the driveway, we actually scan the contract and send it to the title company so they can start working on title right then. That's an awesome app. DocuSign, who doesn't love to sign digital documents?
Yeah.
Save you a ton of time. You get 8 hours of sleep a day? Are you pretty driven? I mean, it sounds like you get a lot of stuff accomplished. You're pretty put together and tight on systems and processes. Do you burn both ends, or do you
No, so I used to. And once I started, I really like to read. And once I started reading about health and then also productivity and, those high performers out there, the Ray Dalios and the larger investors out there that are billionaires, what I found is that sleep is one of the most important things. If you're sleep deprived, it's the equivalent of being legally drunk with your mental capacity. How quick, as real estate investors, we have to make quick split-second decisions. And if we're, for lack of better terms, drunk, we're not going to be making the most opportunistic decisions. We're not going to be making those decisions quickly. And that could lead to a lot of issues. So I actually get 8.5 hours of sleep. Here, I'll show you. I have my timer set up.
Dude, check you out. What mobile app is that?
So it's just on the iPhone. You can just
it's just on the mobile app. Okay.
It's called bedtime. And so it dings you 30 minutes before you're supposed to go to sleep, and then it wakes you up gradually. It's awesome. And then another thing is, what I tell people is you got to really, not only is the amount of sleep important, but the setting is extremely important. What people don't realize is
like REM sleep versus like that kind of sleep where every 3 hours you get the REM
for example, if you have a TV or if you have lights in your bedroom, even the digital LEDs from an alarm clock, that can affect your sleep patterns, because that is light. Our eyelids are very thin. We can actually perceive what's going on while we're sleeping. Right. And if you have any type of light in the room, that will actually cause the quality of sleep to go down. So I have blackout curtains. I try to sound dampen my room as much as possible. they have these things called these float tanks that are like sensory deprivation
They're
tanks.
amazing. Yeah.
They said sleeping in one of those for 3.5 to 4 hours is the equivalent of having a full night's rest, because you're truly drowning everything out. Sound, touch, the airflow, light, everything.
So I do one usually a month, but it's only an hour. So I haven't done like 3 hours before. That's intense. An hour's
I'll probably on the next house I build, I will probably install not only a sauna, a dunk pool, and also one of those.
Sensory deprivation. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, that's cool. What's your morning routine?
So morning routine is I usually wake up anywhere between 6:30. It's to the point now where I wake up slightly before my alarm clock. Just my body naturally does it. Very first thing is I go and I make either tea or coffee, and then I sit down. I do maybe 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. I write a little bit in a journal, just to kind of get my thought process straight, and then I read. I think it's super important to not only wake up early. I'll say why. So the reason I like to wake up early is because, by the time 8:30 starts rolling around, your phone starts blowing up. If you're like me, you have everybody and their mother needs to talk to you because you're the business owner, you're the decision maker.
Right.
Plus you're also doing the networking, you're doing the relationship building. So it's good to have time for yourself, to not only get what you want to do down on paper so that you're efficient throughout the day, but then you also can focus on priorities as opposed to jumping from fire to fire to fire. That's right. You don't get things done that way.
Right.
And I think I think knowledge is power. It has truly made that has been abundantly clear in my life. And reading is one of the best ways that you can do it. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a genius or not. The man that is well-read will always be smarter than the one that isn't. And I have, I learn, I read about everything. I read, taxes, real estate, negotiation, how to talk to people. I don't read much fiction. I need to get back into it. I've read some studies about why it's important.
Yeah, it kind of helps your creative and your front. Yeah,
exactly. And I tell people you got to read, and people always respond, "Oh, I don't have time to read." And it really comes down to, do you prioritize that or not?
Yeah.
Because if you prioritize, imagine just reading 10 pages a day. If you just read, that takes 10 minutes, not even.
Yep.
10 pages a day. In a year, you've read 3,650 pages, the equivalent of 10 books. If your average book is 350 pages, right?
Absolutely, man.
That's super, like you said, eat small bites, one bite at a time is how you eat an elephant, right?
That's it, man. Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned this. So on my Audible, I don't know if you see this, but I've been listening to a book a day. Gosh, that thing got going up. I've been listening to a book a day, and you can see where it says finished. So a book a day. I'm sorry, not a book a day, a book a week. A book a day would be incredible. A book a week for the last 4 years. Yeah. So the cool thing is that if you don't like to read, you can actually speed up your audio. So on Audible, you can speed up the time for listen back speed. And so you can, if you say, I don't have enough time to read, well, if you have a book, and let's say it's going to take you 2 hours to finish the book, you can speed it up. And if you read about this, you actually retain more, but the faster you listen to something. Right. Because the way that your mind thinks, and an average person speaks between 200 and 300 words a minute, your mind thinks between 400 and 500. So as you're talking, you're thinking about lunch tomorrow, what the kids are doing, whatever else that you're thinking about, that you're having 2 conversations. Yeah. Which, by the way, to your point on active listening, is why it's so hard to active listening, because as you're, quote, listening, you're also thinking about these other things and what you're getting ready to say back to this other person. Yeah. Only halfway listening, right? So whenever you're listening back on these audiobooks, if you speed it up and you put your headphones in where you're now, that's why the power of podcasts, because you're focused in on what's going on in that situation, and you're cutting out all the other noise, and you're just listening to the book or the words. You can actually retain more, and you can get through a lot of books. I also think that what you just said on reading 10 pages a day is incredibly powerful, but this is one thing we went over a long time ago about how to read a book in a week. So if you don't want to listen to a book, the way you can read a book in a week is take the whole book. So if it's 200 pages, which a lot of books are about 200 pages, a lot of books, and you divide up those pages by 7 or 6, depending on how many days you want to read, and you just read that many pages and you stop. The challenge is a lot of people don't like to stop, and then they just keep going. Then they say, well, I didn't finish the book, because they're trying to finish the book in a whole day, right? They're trying to eat the elephant in the day. Like you said, if you just read those pages and you stop, but you divide up the book by 6, for that, in this case, it'd be about 30 pages, give or take, right? If you can read 30 pages and stop, then you can get through a whole book in a week. And I think it's what you said is right on point. Person that reads is going to just be ultimately in the know of different things, and especially if you're reading about specific things that you want to learn and dig deeper into.
Yeah.
I love it, man. That's awesome. What are you most grateful for?
I mean, first and foremost, it's my health and the health of the people around me. So it's funny, every once in a while when I'm starting to get real stressed in the business or my partner's getting real stressed in the business, or one of my employees, I always stop and say, hey guys, is anybody going to die, or is anybody going to go to prison? The answer is no. Why are we stressing about this, right? So it really comes down to, the reason I got into real estate investing is because I wanted to do what I wanted to do with whom I wanted to do it whenever I wanted to do that. And for the most part, that has been the case. So I'm most grateful for the fact that I have all my friends and family around, and that I could spend time with them. I'm not locked to a 9-to-5 job. And I can see them whenever I want and spend time with them. That's the whole reason we do this. It's not to make a bunch of money. That's a great side effect of it, but it's to be able to enjoy our time with the people we most love.
Yeah, man. So if you had to summarize it, why do you do what you do?
Time freedom and the ability to do what I think is the highest value activity for me, as opposed to somebody telling me what my most high value activity is.
So just having that personal control.
Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. How old are you, Fernando? Because you strike me as someone pretty young.
Yeah, I'm 27.
Gosh, man. 27
An old
years.
soul, though.
You're so bright beyond where your years are right now, man. I'm inspired, man, to hear what you're getting into, your experiences working, at 14 at a bank teller. I mean, I didn't even know if I could actually get a paycheck. I was working at 13 or 14 at Taco Factory, Dad's baseball cards, and selling Kirby home cleaning systems.
There you go.
Yeah. So door to door, seriously. It's just inspiring to see at your age how you are getting more involved with real estate, specifically on self-storage. Gosh, at the rate you're going, man, you're just going to crush everything in sight. And so just good on you, man, for
I appreciate
really taking the time to invest, having the discipline, because that is a big part of it, and getting your priorities lined up. So I'm excited to see your future, man, your efficacy.
Me too. I appreciate the kind words. Thanks, Corey.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, if we want to get in touch with you, if anybody listening right now wants to reach out to you, have a conversation, maybe they have some opportunities that would interest you, what's the best way we can serve you? How can we contact?
Yeah. So I always say this, but my partner hates it when I do this. I am super abundant with my time, especially people that want to learn what I'm doing. I just tell people, call me on my phone. My number is 630-408-8090. Text message is the easiest way to contact me. If you'd like to go something a little bit more traditional route, you can go to our website at www.titanwealthgroup.com, or find us on social media, Titan Wealth Group. We're on almost all of the platforms there, but just feel free to reach out. Call me, text me. I'm always around.
You're the first person that I've ever had on here that actually give out your personal cell phone.
And you can, I swear to you, that is my personal cell phone. You can shoot me a text right now and it will pop up.
That's insane. That's great, man. Yeah. Well, I appreciate having you on here. Obviously, you're servant-hearted. Obviously, you know what you're doing. And, man, you got a force. You're a force. You got momentum going right now. We'll potentially – it looks like we'll probably have you on a second time to dig a little bit deeper into self-storage, because I think a lot of folks right now are typing in your number and texting you. But I'll put everything in the show notes. This has been an awesome episode, and I'm super pumped to see you in a couple of weeks, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time, Corey.
All right. Appreciate you. Remember, be a servant. Thanks for being on the show, and make sure that you attend our next Real Estate Investing Profit Masters podcast. We're going to bring some amazing investors like Fernando, and we'll make sure that we serve you with the best, highest information to help you on your investing journey. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Bye.
Hi, this is Corey Boatwright, and I have a quick question for you. What is the fastest way to reach your goals? Is it to work harder, work smarter, use system and processes, or hire rock star employees? What about just making more money? Actually, it's none of that. Those things are a byproduct of the one success component that every real estate investor or business owner that I know all have in common. And the answer is clarity. Complete laser focus on what you want, why you want it, and what are you willing to do to get it. So where do you find clarity? By hiring a coach and mentor. Now, could you reach the level of success that you want to achieve by doing this all on your own? The Lone Ranger. Well, maybe, but do you think it would take you double or even triple the time to achieve it compared to hiring a coach and mentor to help guide your path, provide proven instruction with a tailored blueprint that you could follow for building a real estate business that supports your lifestyle and helps you reach your financial and personal goals? Absolutely. Here's the fact. Time isn't recyclable. So I would like to ask you to make good use of it and extend a personal invitation for you to book a phone coaching strategy session by going to callwithcorey.com. That's callwithcorey, Corey spelled CORY.com. I'm going to ask you a few quick questions on that page, and we're going to go over and see how we can make sure that your business is on path to reach the goals that you want this year. So go to callwithcorey.com, that's CORY, and book your phone coaching strategy session today. Remember, be a servant, and I'll see you on there.
You've been listening to another Real Estate Investing Profits Master Podcast Series. To receive your free real estate book, Down and Dirty, Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, how to quit your job to start flipping houses in 90 days or less, head online and go to realestateinvestingprofits.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Real Estate Investing Profits. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.